can't just call plumbers plumbers and electricians electricians and custom builders and put them all in the same bucket.
Tom Doherty used to be an integrator, but now he's quietly reshaping how lighting actually reaches people's homes. He is, in the best way possible, the Willy Wonka of custom integration and lighting coming together.
A lot of people just think of integrator and they stick all of us, all 20,000 companies in the same bucket, but there's this other segment. We are the direct link. We are the only person between them and the client. That's why our relationships are directly with the manufacturer. And because we're working with homeowners, there's a limited number of seats at this table. Really quickly, our people can learn and know more about lighting than the architect does, the builder, the electrician, the interior designer, the client. So all of a sudden, the lighting industry is such a failure. When you look at from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, what people have spent on kitchen appliances. Almost everybody used to have a KitchenAid, and now certain houses have a Wolf, but you make them aware and it's like, oh, I want that. And that's what the integration channel is doing, is they're exposing people to what's possible that the lighting industry has failed to do for decades.
And all you have to do is stand up and say, welcome to the party, let me teach you a few things. Every project deserves lighting that feels intentional, not like an afterthought you settled for under deadline pressure. That's why Lucetta CI engineered a linear lighting portfolio that integrates seamlessly with control systems you already spec, ships from a ready inventory in Reno, and arrives when you actually need it. Residential, commercial, and custom, their team builds solutions around integrators, not the other way around. Lucetta CI is custom integration made easy. Check them out at lucettaci.com. Adding a category is hard. Lighting as a category. Is this something that integrators wanted, or was it something that they got pulled into?
They got pulled into. They had no intention, clearly no intention of providing it or selling it or dealing with it. We got pulled into it in that we were touching lighting, but strictly from a lighting control standpoint. But over time, lighting control became a very common thing on almost every project. And at that time, the only thing you need to be concerned about was the wattage load on a switch leg or on a dimming module. And so the integrator just needed to calculate up and understand from whoever was providing the fixtures, what is the total wattage. And that was it. Things worked great. You know, we're there to troubleshoot and make things fix. And often maybe with things that we didn't provide, but somehow it's tied to our system. And LEDs were tied to these lighting control systems, so we were experiencing flicker and cutoff and non-performing dimming. We had to kind of jump in and start, in the beginning, influencing on what went into the project. And that has limits because people don't always do what you tell them to do. So ultimately, we kind of had to take the bull by the horns and learn more about lighting, understand it, and starting to not just influence on decisions that were made on projects, but actually start providing it.
What different categories of integrators exist around working with lighting in the current environment of residential construction?
By and large, the ones that have taken on this new category have invested the time and effort into it over the last several years because it's pretty new that that integrators have done this. Primarily, it's the most advanced, but you can't say that generally because I know that there are integrators that are not as prepared as others. So there's differentiation between one integration company and another. You can't just call plumbers plumbers and electricians electricians and custom builders and put them all in the same bucket. I'll make up a number. I'll say that there's, first of all, like you mentioned, there's between 18 and 20,000 people that might call themselves an integrator. So what does that mean? That means somebody that can buy a TV mount and offer a service and help some family install their wall television. Serious integration companies that are really competent along traditional means, there could be, 3,000 or 4,000 of those. And maybe there are 500 or 600 that presently, after a number of years, we're in 2026, that will raise their hand and say, yeah, we're providing you lighting control. Oh, and by the way, we can help you with the right kind of LED solutions, whether it's linear tape or recessed. And there's a range of that too. There's some that are finding their way. I would say that this would probably be debatable, but I would say that there are 100 that are really pretty good at it now.
What would you say, their current limitation is and what they're still interested in trying to know and learn more about?
And again, it just depends. There's some people that don't have any limitation now because they've invested in it, they've been doing it for a while, and they're pretty expert at it. Because they've taken it so seriously that they've been able to bring in traditional professional lighting design employees. The top integrators are as experienced as anybody on the planet for project managing complex technology solutions. So they've been at it long enough that they're excellent at PMing the lighting and the commissioning, and they've got the great lighting design capability in-house. Others are, using it third party. So there are a number of people that don't have any weaknesses now. And the number one limitation is primarily creating the processes such that they're efficient at project managing these projects. Because there's, as you know, a lot of complexity, not just with the lighting, but the realities of the construction site and the changes that occur. And high-performance lighting, spec-grade lighting, is generally built to order, and not returnable. And so we have this concept called the shelf of shame. So, you can measure how good of a project manager or how tight your processes are as an integrator based on, how big is your shelf of shame. But we've learned that there are kind of two camps. Both camps can be really successful, and their team can talk the talk, and they can demonstrate it, and they can sell it. And then one company is humming along, and then the other one is struggling. And the differentiator we've, put our finger on is the project management side. Because as a whole, we do very complex things with the other categories that we deliver, and a lot of them, but the lighting is just a whole nother set, and it requires, you got to be all in, and you really have to discover and create processes that are not intuitive.
I want to talk more about that and how that shift is approaching us maybe faster than we see. But before we dive into that, I want to talk about kind of the other part of this business, which is the supply and what's being supplied, and that's luminaires. What's driving manufacturing to want to be a part of this channel?
The manufacturer's awareness of it has rapidly increased. We have, I think, 60 non-exhibiting manufacturers, and maybe that's 35 companies, but there's, I think, 35 separate companies on this show floor taking a look. And it appears that, the commercial space is, not, maybe it's doing fine, but I think manufacturers are, becoming aware of this new vertical. And then a lot of it is because there was maybe a little stigma amongst manufacturers to go after this new vertical. And so they had to work through managing the perceived conflicts and disruption that this channel seemed to bring about. And now that enough of them have crossed the picket line, let's say, now it's like everybody wants to be in. Everybody. We turned away 30 manufacturers from the show floor that wanted to exhibit here because we're looking for manufacturers that understand the channel first. and are then also willing to make the investment in supporting this vertical, which is different than what they're used to. It's different flow.
My quick perception of that is it's just additional revenue for them.
Yeah.
Is it anything beyond that?
Our industry won't support 350 lines. We have 3 automation lines. There used to be hundreds of speaker lines. We want to deliver solutions with as few manufacturers as we can, because we have to depend on the kind of service and relationship that you build by supporting people to the max. And you need to be able to have a relationship. So if, hey, I need something overnighted and I'm in trouble, and you have a relationship with, the person, it's not just inside sales or customer support or whatever. It's like, you get that by, being a great patron of your partners.
Why do they feel like they need to know someone versus just a general inbox?
We're serving people that don't have to have what we have. Our responsiveness and our ability to fix things and make our clients' lives smooth as possible. It's kind of like a concierge at a 5-star hotel. They know they have certain relationships with restaurants, and they shove them enough business because they deserve it of it. And then when they need a favor and they need a table, they need to be able to make that call.
It's driven by the client.
Yeah, we are completely driven by the client, and I'm sure every manufacturer says the same thing. But we are the direct link. We are the only person between them and the client. They're not going through distribution and the agency and the specifier and the architect and the developer and so on and so forth. That's why our relationships are directly with the manufacturer. And because we're working with homeowners who we are giving the highest level of service and we have that level of relationship, we expect that same sort of connection with our vendor partners. And so the ones that give us that, and we've developed these multi-year relationships, we're able to get the job done with as few people as possible. There's a limited number of seats at this table. And it doesn't matter how big or important you are in the commercial space, it's at this point getting harder and harder to find a seat at the table, because the people that are already here and have been supporting the integrator from the beginning and took the risk, it's going to be pretty hard to displace them.
People all day like to right now kind of compare lighting and shading because it's, the current category being added compared to the last category being added. What's the same and what's different?
Primarily, most of the technologies that the channel has been serving have been entertainment-based. And so shades was a lifestyle. I mean, all of them is lifestyle, but, had a decorative function to it. And normally, why would an AV guy provide shades? And it made sense because they were motors and you could integrate it with the lighting control system, and you're controlling natural light and artificial light. And so people, when that was first introduced, was like, why would I do that? That the interior designer does that or somebody else does that. But turned out that the integration channel drives the motorized shade business. And what was, challenging about that was a whole new things that you need to learn. Networking, all the other things that were added to our world in the entertainment side, new formats, that sort of stuff, you could adapt. This was a new vocabulary: inside mount, outside mount, ripple fold, pinch pleat, deflection, reflectance, transmission, openness factors. All that was like new stuff you had to learn. It was an area that you could make mistakes, measure wrong, own the thing. Oh, I measured the shade. If it was too short, you were in trouble. If it was too long, there were tricks you could do where you could cut things in the field. Lighting also was like, well, the electrician provides that, or somebody else provides that, or the lighting show, why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. And it's a whole new vernacular to learn. It had this impact on the vibe of the space. not just through audio and video, but feeling. And what was also similar was a new vernacular. What's different about it, it's a lot more complex than shades. Shades is pretty easy to learn and pretty easy to figure out how not to make mistakes. Windows are easy to measure. And a lot of that stuff happens after it's all installed. So you just need to get the wire in the right place for shade. Great business. Mm-hmm. High margin, doesn't fail. People need lots of them. Lighting is got way more variables, a lot more to learn, a lot easier to make big mistakes. Oh, I didn't realize the cabinets were coming out that far. It for sure has a much more painful start for an integrator taking it on.
I can only guess what you mean by painful start, so I have to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Most projects are builder-driven, electrician-driven, and that is just, speccing, 100 contractor-grade cans on a job, whatever. Now that dealers can learn the vernacular, you can be the smartest person on the whole project. Really quickly, our people can learn and know more about lighting than the architect does, the builder, the electrician, the interior designer, the client. So all of a sudden, you know more about it than everybody else, pretty easily. And then if your showroom, if you fit it out, you can demonstrate and show things that no one is being shown. It's like the client sees art lit for the first time for the, or they see, things accented and layers of light demonstrated to them for the first time, because you don't go into lighting showrooms to see layers of light. So everybody's like, great. And then our people are really good at putting proposals together and selling complete technology packages. So all of a sudden, there's, pretty nice proposal for really great lighting. And then it's time to order the stuff. And it's really the project management part. There's all kinds of challenges that occur during that process of then coordinating, telling the electrician, we got a different plan that you were bid from and that you worked on, and everybody's expecting for you to reprice this, but here I'm going to provide all this stuff. And it needs to go here, there, or wherever. And then, it looked good on paper on that reflected ceiling plan, but the framing doesn't allow any of that. So what changes do we need to make under the current construction reality? And it's like, okay, we got to redraw this. Oh, we ordered the wrong stuff. We ordered too much stuff. We didn't order enough stuff. And then, every manufacturer is different on how they package it up. All of a sudden, the salesman and the owner are all excited, and they flip this order over that this needs to be ordered. And it's like, well, I don't know who any of these vendors are. Who do I call? And then they order the wrong thing, and then a bunch of trims show up that are wrong. And then you got to scramble around and get it's just lots of places for failure, lots of points of failure. And then the AV guy has to eat all that.
So when you talk about all the points of failure, what's the economics of that for an integrator as it relates to everything they have to provide in order to get lighting on a project?
The reason why they do it is that they feel it's their duty to serve their client. They see the mediocrity of what's going to happen otherwise, and they know that they could make their client's home environment that much better. That's what we're all about. Been working with architects for decades. We've been working with interior designers, and we're sensitive to design. And so we now know that there could be something better about lighting than what this client's going to end up with. So we kind of feel it's our duty to create the awareness of what's possible. And so that's why we want to do it. And then I've been evangelizing the reason why you do it, in addition to, being a good citizen, is it gets you into the conversation earlier again. There was a time when what we were doing was super cool. Like the dawn of home theaters, like no one, that was like super cool. And then the earliest days of home automation, oh, that sounds cool, that's cool. But people have become numb to that. And now it's not just one integrator in a market, there's dozens or 100 integrators in the market. And so I experienced myself that evangelizing better lighting created a gateway for me to get involved in the project earlier. And so the motivation is to get in the conversation earlier. And what I mean by that is not being called in to, okay, we're ready to figure this out, and sheetrock is going to go up, in 4 weeks or whatever. The house is framed. We need a quote on the AV stuff. We need, with this lighting and being able to educate the builders and the architects and the designers and our former clients in our showrooms, and they see something that, wow, you can do all that, then they're inviting us while they're sketching out the house. And then you're part of the design team. And when you're part of the design team, you are able to, through that period of time, create trust and credibility. And then when it's time to talk about where televisions and stereos and outdoor stuff and cameras and all the other things we do, it's a very easy conversation.
Going back to those 100 integrators that are in it today and the 500 who are right behind them wanting to get into it, is it growing revenue or is it getting it right?
It's getting it right. And the evidence of that is integrators, the top ones, take seriously of operating at a level of excellence that the kind of customers and projects around require. These people take what they do really seriously because they also are very much on the hook. It's not like, I'm going to install a pool and then, you can't get me to come back. A lot of people just think of integrator and they stick all of us, all 20,000 companies in the same bucket. But there's this other segment, this just like in any profession, but in ours, there's a segment that operates at the highest levels, highest ethical integrity levels. And that is, by large, the group that is pursuing this next category, and they're investing their time and energies into learning from the best in the business.
What's the number one reason they fail at adopting this category?
Some people just don't want change or just don't want to take, either they recognize that looks like a lot of work or, I don't need to do that. And some people, it's like, hey, I'm doing well just providing the AV and I'll just let somebody else do that. Some are doing that. Some are.
What about the ones that try that don't succeed?
I'm sure there are examples of people that try it, don't succeed, and say, well, I'm not doing that again. Okay, I stuck my hand in the disposal and it was running. That wasn't smart. It's still really early in this whole curve.
So let's talk about the last thing. None of this happens without the product.
Yeah.
Right? Undeniably, unequivocally, the people who are taking advantage of all of these systems in their homes have the opportunity to afford it. You mentioned earlier, they don't necessarily need it, but they like it and it's fun. So lighting has to become fun and sexy and cool and fascinating and interesting. What is the biggest difference between the commercial world that lighting manufacturing knows and this world?
The commercial world is got a lot more gates to go through for it to ultimately have their product on a project. And in our world, it's nothing like that. In our world, you don't have to market to all those different people. You don't have to convince the lighting designer and the developer and the builder and the GC and, on and on and on and on. The manufacturer in our world just has to earn the trust and support of the integrator, because the integrator is the person that acquires the client or the opportunity. They acquire that. That's not done by agencies in our world. Do not acquire opportunities. Manufacturers don't generally acquire. This is all like all politics are local. Our thing is the relationships with somebody building a house. The integrator is able to identify the opportunity. The integrator works directly with the person that writes the check, the client generally. The integrator then is able to find the opportunity, ultimately design the project, submit the proposal and the bid, get the thing accepted, place the order, procure it, deliver it, project manage it, commission it, service it. So one point of contact handles all of that. And so there aren't a bunch of people stepping on it and participating in it. And so you don't have multiple people that have to be, convinced or so on and so forth. And then that results in almost every single time no value engineering. So the integrator is able to specify the job and the integrity of the design and the intent of the product and performance that's being spec'd sticks. That's a big difference. Prior to joining HTSA, I was doing this since 2008, talking to manufacturers. So it's almost 20 years ago now. And I've been with HTSA since 2017. And the big education is educating the manufacturers that first, we can bring you projects that you otherwise will never have seen, but you have to do business and support us and have support services that are identical to all the other vendors that we deal with, meaning the television, the Sonys of the world, the speaker manufacturers of the world, the Crestrons, and their big learning curve has been to figure out how they can their go-to-market strategy has to be completely adapted to how our channel works, and everything that they do in the commercial world has to be forgotten and left at their office.
Do you think that it's achievable for lighting manufacturing to set up and support that set of demands?
100%. And they've all adapted and feel just like every other vendor partner in all the other categories that we work with.
Is it a one in, one out already with lighting manufacturing in terms of what this channel is willing to support versus what's already in it?
The market size is X size. It's much bigger than it was last year and the year before. And, the growth of integrators providing lighting on projects is greater than prior, but it's still a tiny percent of the potential. I would put it this way. Almost every project today does get some level of lighting control. Almost every project today gets some shades on it. When shades were introduced, almost zero projects got shades on them. I would say today that even the most successful integrator, let's say they do 50 projects, and probably 49 of them have lighting control on them. And maybe, a similar number have some motorized shades on them. Probably of those 50, they're only providing 3 or 4 of those projects with fixtures on them. Mm-hmm. And next year it'll be 6, and the next year it'll be 10, and next year it'll be 25, and eventually, high probability they'll be providing intelligent lighting fixtures on every single project they're providing lighting control on. So the growth opportunity is such. And so as the more and more growth happens, there's more room for more manufacturers, not 350. We purposely curated, our partnerships with HTSA with as few manufacturers as possible, because these manufacturers that came over in the earliest days, the sales weren't that great, and they've been climbing, and we've needed them to get an ROI on their investment in this channel, and I didn't want to dilute their efforts by, piling on more members within our group. And then with Lightapalooza, we carefully selected a few, and over time we've allowed more in. based on what I believe to be the elasticity of what the demand is.
I think there's respect, right?
Yeah.
There's mutual respect to say, if this is going to come into our core set of responsibilities as custom home integrators, let's not try to do it all at once, and let's work to get it right. And there's the fortuitous opportunity to be first. A home can only have so many, I guess, applications of lighting, so that probably limits it a little. But at the end of the day, it's the way of doing business. It's a mindset. It's a mind shift from the commercial world. As you look at where we're at today and where we go 3 to 5 years from now, you alluded to more projects for integrators, but holistically, the value of lighting, good lighting, understanding lighting, designing with lighting, I can't help but get excited to think about the fact that, well, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people a year are getting beautiful lighting in their homes because they hire the world's best and elite. There's now 10,000, maybe 100,000 people a year getting something better than what's off the electrician's card in their home. I think it advocates for just like the broad general awareness of good lighting. Do you?
Yeah. It's awareness. So why is there such contractor grade stuff so prevalent throughout the United States except for a few markets? And then why me from Indianapolis in 2008 when I built a lighting lab and just started showing it to homeowners, the same homeowners that were going to get contractor grade lighting, and I did my demonstration of layers of light and wall washing versus precision adjustable versus a projector. And they all saw that for the first time. I even demonstrated, I know you want a white baffle, but let me show you what an Alzac is. See, it's the same amount of light is hitting, but there's no glare. Oh, no one's ever shown that to me. So there's what this integration channel is doing is it's increasing the awareness amongst people, and once they see it, they want it. And to me, that was my frustration as I was starting to lobby these manufacturers 2 decades ago. Is like, we can serve people that you're otherwise not seeing, and then ultimately, you as an industry, the lighting industry is such a failure. When you look at from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, what people have spent on kitchen appliances. Almost everybody used to have a KitchenAid, and now, certain houses have a Wolf, and that whole Wolf thing, and fancier stoves and higher end Italian cabinetry, and homes in the 80s, everybody had Formica and laminate, and then Corian came out, and what people have spent in their other technologies that we've been delivering is ever elevated based on awareness and, I didn't know you could have that. I'd like to have that. And so we are now demonstrating to a base of consumers of what's possible. And, I had no idea. Because when you're building a home and the general contractor has you go and look at the stone center and the kitchen cabinet place, they send you to the lighting showroom. What happens at the lighting showroom? 95% decoratives, no lighting lab, no demonstration, no lighting design services. Most people just go in and put in, everybody has the same stuff. But then when you show them what's possible, I had no idea. In the 80s, like, well, you can have this 26-inch Trinitron, or I can use this commercial-grade broadcast Sony projector, and somehow we'll give you a 10-foot screen. I had no idea I could have that. And home theater is this giant explosion. Home automation is this giant explosion. I didn't know I could have motorized shades. I didn't know I could have a single button and make all the lights turn off. I thought I had to have lighting that was like this. Is this all I get, 4 cans and a fan? Yes, that's what you get.
And if you put it in people's homes, those people leave and they go places. They own companies, they own businesses. And the answer is, well, if I have it here, can I have it there? And the answer is, yeah, you can.
The last short story is I, learned a little bit about lighting, and I built a house with Pulte, production home, And so we're in a neighborhood with everybody's got essentially the same floor plan, same elevation, different materials, 31 lots. And I was able to convince Pulte supervisor to allow me, I put in all, at the time, this is 2012, Juno Aculux halogen 3-inch MR16s. The rest of the houses were all BR65 6-inch cans throughout. And so I did an intentional lighting, and I just said, hey, the electrician, he can keep all the fixtures. I just want him to place them. So I did that. And, and so all those neighbors would come over and like, there's something about it. Oh my God. And then they would go back to their house and they'd say, we hate you. Our house looks like is terrible. Yeah. And I had no idea. And every one of those neighbors of mine could have afforded and would have selected that, because every other high-end thing that they opted for, the options they did. But production homes aren't motivated. No one's motivated. The industry's not motivated. The builders aren't motivated. The electricians aren't motivated. No one's motivated. The lighting industry's not motivated to educate, the differences in what lighting is. No one's aware of it. And then, but you make them aware, and it's like, oh, I want that. And that's what the integration channel is doing, is they're exposing people to what's possible that the lighting industry has failed to do for decades. And we are delivering higher quality lighting than otherwise would happen, I think, as an aggregate that's occurred over the last 3 decades.
I would say I wouldn't have known anything about anything you shared with me 3 years ago. I love lighting. I've been in this industry for a while. So thanks for summing it up and sharing it with me and everybody else who gets a chance to listen to this. It's a cool moment for lighting. That's my take. There are, name a profession, name a trade, name a feature. I don't care. Call lighting whatever you want to call it. How often does thousands, let alone 5 or 10,000 people come running and say, I want to be a part of what you do? And all you have to do is stand up and say, welcome to the party. Let me teach you a few things. Keep going. Keep doing it. Keep Lightapaloozing it up. And have fun. Thanks for your passion and your commitment.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed getting to know you over the years, and I really appreciate what you're doing and bringing these communities together, because there's a lot that we can do together. The traditional professional lighting experts, we should be collaborating and working together, because I think both communities working together and understanding each other, that we can really achieve great things.
100%. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Sam.